everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sukhan Unplugged. We have been blessed that we have been talking to people from all across the world, from different fields of life. And today's episode is very special to me because I have a very special guest with me. First of all, I would like to welcome and thank Dr. Nimer Sultany for giving us time today. He is visiting Pakistan for a couple of literary festivals and talks. But talking about who he is a PhD scholar from Harvard Law School and is currently teaching at SOAS UK. He has also practiced law in Palestine and he is currently Associate Professor of Law, if I'm not wrong. Yes, thank you, sir. And his groundbreaking research explores intersection of law, legal theory, political theory, and particular emphasis on the complexity of Middle East, notably Israel and Palestine. And that's where we are aiming to talk about. We are not just trying to understand the issue. First of all, sir, on behalf of I think most of people in Pakistan, we do stand in solidarity with you. Even unfortunately, if our governments or leaders are unable to do for whatever reasons they choose. But before, sir, moving on to little complicated issues of understanding the conflict, I would like to start with something of your personal experience of growing up in Palestine as a kid and then as a student, and because you have practiced law and you were telling me that you became lawyer in Palestine. So a little bit about that and then we'll move to the legal aspect of it.
Thanks for having me. Obviously, the Palestinians are divided into different communities. So 2/3 of the Palestinians are refugees in refugee camps in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, in Gaza and the West Bank as well. And then another group of Palestinians are under occupation in the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. And then a smaller number of Palestinians are also citizens inside Israel. So the Palestinians in the occupied territories in the West Bank and Gaza are under a brutal occupation. They are under a system of apartheid, as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, amongst others, have clearly and elaborately described. The Palestinians, the Palestinians inside Israel are also under a system of apartheid because the state of Israel is basically a Jewish supremacy, and there is segregation, both residential and educational, between the Palestinians inside Israel and the Jewish majority. And the Israeli state defines itself as a Jewish state, thereby excluding the Palestinian citizens who are non-Jewish from the political definition of the state and the definition of the people who are, for whom the state was established. So at all these levels, the Palestinians are subjugated, the Palestinians are discriminated against and brutalized in different ways. And I think it's important that we see how all these different groupings are under one system of oppression, one system of discrimination, but with varying degrees of brutality.
Right, sir. So, sir, I'm also going to share the link to your paper, which you shared with me in the description. People can read it in detail. But as you just mentioned, you talked about Amnesty and all these groups actually defining, this is what Israel is doing. But then we see there are dual standards. A lot of people refuse to accept that, there's a genocide going on, there's apartheid going on. So how do you see that? Because generally, people of the world do accept its genocide. But when it comes to certain organizations, international bodies, legal bodies, they just turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when it comes to the so-called rules-based international order, we see a lot of selectivity and a lot of hypocrisy in enforcing it. And obviously, there are different Western countries that are above the law or treat themselves as above the law. And they also defend their allies in the same way. And it was very kind of dismaying to see how the reaction in the West to Ukraine has been different to the reaction to Palestine, which shows also there's latent racism in which Western media, in which Western governments have less regard or even chilling disregard to the victims when they are brown victims, when they are Muslim victims, when they are Arab victims, when they are Palestinian victims, while they care more about Ukrainian victims, white European victims. Similarly, when it comes to the international law, we have seen a lot of impunity when it comes to Israel for decades now. So the occupation has been prolonged and perpetual because all the systems of accountability have been blocked, in particular by the US veto in the UN and other methods. So this shows that international law is unable to be enforced in an even way, and it wasn't protective of the weaker populations. So it overpromises and underdelivers when it comes to the protections of the global South or the prosecution of war criminals in the West, such as the International Criminal Court versus the US, or the International Criminal Court versus Britain when it comes to their war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. So the recent debate about genocide has been also very instructive, because while Palestinians and many people of conscience have said this is a genocide since the mid of October, many Western media outlets as well as Western governments were very dismissive of this notion. And even when South Africa submitted an application to the International Court of Justice under the Genocide Convention, they were also dismissive. But now with the International Court of Justice ruling on provisional measures, obviously this the description of what has been happening in Gaza since the 7th of October as genocide becomes much more stronger with the backing of the highest international court.
So I'll just take a break here. A lot of people you were just talking about how dual standard of international law and their implementation. Some of the people, and I am going to say including me, were cynical in this regard. What will change by submitting an application to International Court of Justice, which has historically failed to bring dictators and brutal leaders from Africa, from other countries. First of all, it doesn't really take countries like Israel, and they are more interested in pinpointing the African leaders, or Putin for that matter. But my question is that, in this scenario, in reality, when they just don't care about them, what was the importance of South Africa's application and the decision from a legal and humanitarian perspective?
Yeah, the South African application was hugely important, and you need, in order to understand the importance of this application as well as then the ruling, you need to consider not only the legal but also the political ramifications, because law can be part of the political contestation and political struggle, and can be used and capitalized on in different ways. So the debate till the 7th of October has been very one-sided. It was very pro-Israeli in the Western media and by Western governments. And the Palestinian voices were completely and entirely excluded from these debates. And the South African application was the first time in which there was this comprehensive narrative in the highest court of the land, in the international system, and invoking the gravest crime possible. And this forces people to listen. This forces people to notice it. And suddenly the Palestinians had a kind of authentic representation of what has been happening to them since the 7th of October in a comprehensive way, rather than discrete ways. So this is one, that the South African application cracked the wall-to-wall Western narrative and Western support to Israel, and in that way it changed the conversation in fundamental ways. Secondly, that intervention and then the ruling itself showed that every single country in the world that is a party to the Genocide Convention now is put on notice that they have a duty to prevent genocide. Right. So this might also lead to dynamics in which more states are either warned about their complicity in the risk of genocide, such as Western governments that have supported Israel, or that they need to be more active to prevent the risk of genocide as a legal obligation. As far as the kind of Western countries, this application and then the ruling itself shows that these countries now have been aiding and abetting a genocide, and therefore they are complicit in a genocide, and this is in itself a violation of the Genocide Convention. The Western media that has also been uncritical in its support to the Israeli genocidal war is also now put on notice that they have been also supporting a plausible genocide. So all of that excuse me, is extremely important.
So just for my own understanding, so if any country now takes some kind of action that is against Israel, for example, an embargo or some trade restrictions, keep citing this decision, so they will be justified. It won't be some kind of retaliation, some kind of one-sided action against Israel.
Yeah, indeed. Even in its advisory opinion on the apartheid wall in 2004, the International Court of Justice have said that the other countries should not help or facilitate Israel's denial of the right to self-determination of the Palestinians and its continued occupation of the West Bank and Gaza in particular. And they should assist the Palestinians in gaining their freedom. But that was an advisory opinion in a way, so some people have dismissed it. While the recent ruling on genocide is a compelling order, meaning it's obligatory, and it again invokes every country's obligation to prevent genocide and to help the Palestinians and to stop Israel from what it's doing. So this means that all these countries have to do everything that they can, whether diplomatically or economically or politically or any other form of pressure on Israel, so the genocide would stop.
Right, sir. So before wrapping up, a lot of emphasis from Western media has been on, the October 7th date. It's like, it's just the start of some random war on October 7th. But this has been, and you argue in your paper and yesterday in your talk as well, that it has been a structural expansion from Israeli side. And one thing I want your opinion and your reply is that, it's not the case, as far as my understanding is, that it's not the case that Hamas has always dismissed dialogue, dismissed negotiation, dismissed any kind of solution, and they are always up with their arms. So I want your informed opinion on that.
Yeah, indeed. Again, one of the advantages of the South African application to the ICJ is that it showed there is a context, a historic context for the outbreak of violence in Palestine. So they said in the oral presentation as well as the written submission that there has been 75 years of apartheid, there has been 56 years of a brutal occupation, and there has been 16 years of siege on Gaza. And we need to keep these in mind when we are talking about what happened on the 7th of October. So the South African intervention undermined the Western narrative, which was, and the Israeli pro-Israeli narrative, which was that Hamas is some kind of a external attack, crossing sovereign border on an unsuspecting Israel. But the fact of the matter is that Israel has been denying the Palestinians for decades now the right to self-determination, and has been putting them under a brutal form of occupation. And in particular in Gaza, since the Palestinian elections in 2006, Israel has imposed a cruel siege on the Palestinians in Gaza, controlling every aspect of their lives. So one of the conceits is that Israel is claiming that it's no longer occupying Gaza because they have no troops on the ground. But the fact of the matter is that all the orthodox international legal authorities, including the ICRC, has repeatedly said that Gaza continued to be occupied given the effective control that Israel has. And the fact that Israel can switch off the electricity and water and all the basic amenities shows how much control they have over Gaza and have had in the last 16 years prior to the 7th of October. So in terms of Hamas, again, there's a lot of demonization of the group in the Western media and by the pro-Israelis. But the fact of the matter is that Hamas have entered the Palestinian elections in 2006 because they wanted to integrate into the Oslo framework and to be part of the governance of the Palestinian territories. But the reaction was from Israel and the US is to stage a coup against Hamas and to try to undermine its ability to govern. And that led to the split between a government in the West Bank and a government by Fatah and a government in the Gaza led by Hamas. And the EU has also contributed to the attempt to undermine Hamas because they paid all the Palestinian Authority employees to stay at home for over a decade just to undermine Hamas and its ability to govern. So Hamas had to fill up all the bureaucracy very quickly in order to be able to govern. The second thing to say is that since then, despite the fact that there were, since 2000, there were like several major military onslaughts by Israel on Gaza, and there has been, and all of these were excessively disproportionate in terms of how much Palestinians Israel killed and how much, and the wanton destruction of property. And obviously Israel did not face any repercussions for its violations of international law, its war crimes, its crimes against humanity. Despite that, if you read the Israeli media, like in 2017 and 2018, you see that Hamas in different points declared publicly that they are looking for a long-term ceasefire, that they accepted the 1967 borders, and they even sent a letter to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, in Hebrew, trying to initiate a dialogue. But obviously the Israelis have no interest in all these initiatives and have no interest in integrating Hamas into the political process. But you know, even more than that, the Israelis have moved so far to the right in any case that they haven't been even able to offer the Palestinians anything or to talk to the Palestinian Authority led by Fatah in the West Bank. So they haven't been offering the Palestinians any horizon for peace, for dignity, for freedom, even if it's not related to Hamas. So even if there's demonization of Hamas in Gaza, what about the West Bank? Why aren't you ending the occupation on the West Bank? Why are you increasing the settlements in the West Bank? Why for 10 years now you had no negotiations with the Fatah-led Palestinian Authority in the West Bank? So all of this shows that Israelis are not interested in peace. They are interested in entrenching their occupation, consolidating the apartheid system over the Palestinians.
Yes, and basically they want to eliminate the Palestinian people and question out of the discussion. So that's it. But my last question would be, you know, as someone who's sitting in Pakistan or someone sitting in a common man, I would say, with some who has concern, who want to contribute. So scholars' activities, how can they better understand the situation? Obviously, because if they want to propagate, if they want to tell something, they have to listen, read, and understand. So what should be the starting point for that? And what role as an academic you see they can play in basically fighting this cause for Palestinian people?
Yeah, obviously, as scholars and academics, the first mission is to educate. Right. To educate the younger generation on Palestine and the injustice that has been committed, and to show the historical context for everything that has been happening, instead of the simplifying narratives that are often offered in the Western media, Western academia, and Western official politics. So, and secondly, even as academics and scholars, we need to think of ways in which we can pressure public opinion or mobilize public opinion to pressure governments to do more in terms of pressuring the Western countries that support Israel, or pressuring Israel itself, more activity in the UN or other fora. There is more we all can do in terms of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign. So any corporations that are complicit in the settlement activity in the West Bank and Gaza, in the occupation, or in the military operations in Gaza, should be boycotted. So, for example, Caterpillar sells Israel D9s, tractors which destroy Palestinian homes, Palestinian schools, and Palestinian residential buildings. So, to the extent we can also boycott these companies in Pakistan or elsewhere, that would be also very important, citing the reason, which is their complicity in genocide. Finally, when you have situations like the defunding of UNRWA, and the reaction has been from many individuals to contribute and donate to UNRWA in order to compensate UNRWA for the withdrawal of funds by influential Western states. So to the extent we as individuals or groups or states can also donate to such organizations that are vital from a humanitarian perspective to Gaza in general, but also to the refugees, Palestinian refugees elsewhere, we should do so.
Right, sir. Sir, thank you so much for your time. I know there are a lot of questions which were in our mind as well, but I'm sure if you get in detail about reading the history and Dr. Saab's work, you will get to know more about it. I'm going to repeat myself, but it's not something, it's not a conflict, it's not a war, it's a one-sided expansion strategy which has been supported by the West, by European countries for over decades now. So it did not start on October 7th. It has been happening since like 1919, and you go before that. So whenever you want to put up a status, whenever you want to write about something, please do read the history as well, because it's important to build up a case that is and it's a genuine, credible case. And we hope that the human lives that are being lost every day, this should stop. There is no justification for that, whatever the reason may be. If you want to blame for individuals, you can blame them, but you cannot eliminate and eradicate an entire nation for that. Sir, thank you for visiting Pakistan. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And my platform and myself in an individual capacity is always available in whatever capacity you deem fit. So please, you have my email, reach out to me, whatever way I can contribute, please let me know. But thank you for it.
Thank you again for having me, and I would like to thank the Pakistani people here in Lahore for their overwhelming solidarity. It has been heartening to see this kind of support. And those who are being brutalized, those who are colonized, those who are being slaughtered now in Gaza, I think it will be important for a Palestinian to know that they are not forsaken, that someone hears their cries and supports their cause and wants to work for justice in Palestine. So thank you again.
So thank you. Please stay tuned, but my last message is not to subscribe or not to like this video, but my last message is to keep raising your voice for the Palestinian, keep putting up your statuses, your tweets. We have seen myself and my channels, sir, algorithm are actually putting us down. They don't want our voices there, but we need to keep up and we should not let these voices down. Thank you so much.